This is the Certifiable Environmental Professional Podcast, and I'm your host, Sam Hopstone. This is my journey to uncover the untold tales from the resumes of fascinating professionals shaping our planet's future.
Certifiable environmental professional.
And you're listening to Certifiable Environmental Professional Podcast.
Let's start at the very top. I have the famous, the great Gretchen Flohr and the mighty, the brave Jenny Flohr. Gretchen, what are you drinking?
Water.
Grass Valley Tap or what? Do you drink like Fiji?
I only drink my tap water 100%. I will not buy bottled water.
Nope.
You got to be kidding.
Yep.
All right. How about you, Jenny?
Well, gosh darn it. I don't ever drink soda, but I'm drinking a zero sugar root beer. Man, you caught me on the bad day.
Or wait, can I get that in there?
Oh,
You
you
got
see
the
the
sticker?
sticker? Yeah.
And then
Zero
here's our
sugar.
sticker.
What's that one at the
Oh,
bottom? Is that
It's
a
a
kit box
desert
too?
kit box.
Desert.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, soda. It's sugar-free and I never drink soda. We're moving on.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I got today I'm drinking loose leaf green tea. It's really nice. They have like the little balls, and then you have it in an infuser and they blossom and there's honey in it. It's sweet.
Very, very fancy.
I feel very fancy pants. It's not coffee, so I'm not yelling.
Okay. Well, I do
Those are
have
the
my
vibes.
coffee too.
Okay, double fist.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Okay.
What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, hands down, Ben and Jerry's vanilla caramel fudge.
Vanilla.
Only Ben and Jerry's and only vanilla caramel fudge.
So is the ice cream part vanilla?
Yes, I'm
Got
a
it.
vanilla kind of person. I'm very vanilla.
Love it. I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's fantastic. Ben and Jerry specifically.
Yes.
What's your current title and employer and like current exciting projects of interest or stuff you're looking forward to this year?
Oh wow. Well, my current job title is I'm not sure. I'm a principal biologist. I'm also a managing principal biologist. So I do a lot of different things there. The projects that I'm working on right now that are super interesting, I probably can't name out loud due to
Yeah, I just mean,
confidentiality.
Yeah,
But
exactly. What you're
I'm
allowed to
working
share.
on a large reservoir project. I'm working on a large wind energy project. I also do a lot of work for PG&E. High-speed rail is another one. And then another project that has been in the works for a long time. I don't know if this one is confidential, so I'll treat it as if it is. But it's a really large water resource conservation project up here in my neck of the woods, which is, I'm not really Sacramento, but I do a lot of work around the Yolo, Sacramento County area. So kind of a lot of large projects, but I also do a lot of smaller projects as well.
Cool. Are you mostly like Sac Metro region, North Valley, or do you get to go all over the state?
I guess in theory I could go anywhere in the state because I work for ICF. And
They're
it's an
everywhere.
internet. Well, it's international actually. So we have a lot of people that do a lot of traveling. But my main area of expertise has always really kind of been focused on Central and Northern California. I've done a little bit in SoCal, but not much. My expertise is really more focused on the upper 2/3 of the state.
Awesome. That makes sense. Next question, where do you live and what gets you excited about living there?
I live in Grass Valley, and I absolutely love it up here in Grass Valley. It is a small town, but it is a highly educated town. We had my first introduction to that was when we were protesting the potential reopening of the Idaho Maryland mine. And I went to the Planning Commission meeting. Was a public meeting where you would have an opportunity to speak. And I went there, having read the EIR and finding it woefully inadequate. And I went there to speak to the biological resources. And I was absolutely flabbergasted because when people got it, there were over 450 people there that wanted to speak. And I was fortunate that I got in the batch that actually did get up to speak. But they had people in every district. They had a hydrogeomorphologist who got up to speak. They had cultural resources people. They had fisheries people. These are all doctorate folks who I guess they've apparently, retired here. I'm not retired, but so it's very educated. It's an interesting community. There's a dichotomy. There's like the decidedly red flavor, shall we say, and then there's the more educated faction. But I love it because I live among the trees, but I'm 10 minutes away from town. So I have a little chunk of property because gardening is my absolute favorite thing to do. I have chickens and bees and I garden and I do that in my spare time.
You're so old. I'm just kidding.
So
Do you fish?
Yeah.
What do you do for fun out there once you get off the ranch?
The ranch is
Go
the
into
fun.
town and get a beer?
No. One of my colleagues lives here. I have a number of colleagues. We all work remote from home, and I have a number of colleagues that work up here in Grass Valley, which is really nice to find out. And our favorite thing to do in the summer is to go to the river. And we go to this little town that I'm not going to name because I don't want anybody else going there. And we go there and then get there early. We get our spot. This is on the Yuba River. It's spectacular.
Nice.
And we float around in our inner tubes on the river till other people start showing up and ruin it for us. And then we go and get one of the homemade ice cream popsicles. And then from there we go to 5 Mile House and have lunch. And we love doing that. I'm a little bit of a foodie. I like exploring all kinds of restaurants and food. And so I'll go out Friday and do something like that. But for me, the fun is I don't really have to leave my own backyard. I can watch birds to my heart's content here. And yeah, so I don't really need to go anywhere.
When I hang out and talk with folks from the Central Sierras, like, foothill folk, well, even folks from the Highlands, they don't camp. It's like, I'm not going camping. I'm already here.
Mm-hmm.
You made it.
You can sleep on your back porch and you just went camping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's dive in and start following your career arc. So looking back in time, K-12, when you were in primary school, can you recall anything that pointed you towards your current career? Like in school or any extracurricular activities, or I put in social interactions, right? Was there an individual that you remember that showed you your current path?
No. No, I was a bookworm. I was a very introverted, shy child, kid. I was painfully shy. And so I would disappear into a book at every opportunity. Even going to a relative's house to visit, I would disappear into the back bedroom with a book, never to be seen again till it's time to go home. And the same thing, I mean, yeah, it was probably a little bit strange going to, my parents had a lot of friends in the area, and we would go and have dinner or something, and I would still disappear off into a corner with the book. So my dad, though, was, at least my perception, is that he was very much about nature, and we did a lot of time camping. But other than that, no, I just loved animals. I always did, and I just absolutely loved animals and wanted to. Well, first I wanted to be president of the United States. That was, you know, if you asked me when I was a little girl growing up, what do you want to be? That was my answer. I want to be president of the United States. And then later, I modified that to I wanted to
Head of
work
the
with
EPA.
animals. Yeah. Yeah. Although right now I would be a fabulous president.
Oh,
Just gonna say.
I was like, I don't think I could handle head of the EPA right now. That sounds stressful.
Anyways, yeah, so no, I just it's kind of weird because I don't remember being that great in school, but when I meet people from my past, they always say, "Oh, you were so smart," and I don't really understand where that came from. Um, but I was in music. My parents were opera singers, and so my mom was a published composer.
I forgot about that
And
part. That's awesome.
yeah, so they only allowed classical music in the house. And so I grew up on classical music, and my mom started me on piano when I was 4. And she allowed me to switch instruments when I was 11. And I went really far with that till I was 16. Um, and then my flute got stolen at an audition.
Oh.
And yeah, I was at San Jose City College. I was the youngest person in the San Jose Youth Symphony when I made it in at 13. And then I'd been in it a couple of years, and then I was there to try out again. And so I was you had to try out every year, even though you'd been in it before.
Uh-huh.
And so I went to I was there for an audition. It was during the daytime, and most of the people would be inside, and they all be playing because they want to intimidate everybody else, because you can hear them playing, and it's going to freak you out, and then you're going to do really bad.
Psych out. Yeah.
The whole psych out. Well, I
In the
didn't have
green
any
room.
part of that. I would just wait outside, and then they call my name and I go in. So I was waiting outside the courtyard area, and I saw this dog tied up to a pole in the sun, and it was really, really hot out. And I thought, oh no, that's terrible. So I got up and I went over and I untied the dog and moved it into the shade. And when I came back, my flute was gone.
Aw.
So I just kind of took that as a sign, like, oh, okay, I'm done.
That's my
And,
last day playing flute.
Yeah.
I'm out. Did you take the
Pretty
dog home
much.
at least? At least I
Yeah.
got a dog.
I
Trade the flute with the dog.
Hey, look, I traded my flute and I got this dog. So yeah, so that was kind of weird. And so no, but I was very much of a, you call me a wallflower reject person. I was not really somebody who I did a lot of different things. So I had the music thing going on, and then I was also in the debating club at high school. But then I also ran track, and I was also on girls swim team. So I kind of did a lot of stuff. And
Lots
honestly,
of extracurriculars. None of those involved foxes.
She didn't get into this until she was an adult. After.
Post baccalaureate.
my parents were not animal people at all. No, they did not like animals, and they certainly
They
really
were,
didn't want them in the house. Yeah.
They were outdoorsy. They weren't naturalists.
No, they were very cultured. I grew up in a home where it was classical music, it was art, it was literature. Um,
Did,
yeah, although like I said, my dad, we went camping a lot. But no, it was a very cultured upbringing. Um, not a lot of getting down into the dirt and, getting muddy and things like that. No.
did you were you born in California? Am I allowed to ask?
Yeah, I
E-
was born in Los Angeles.
Every like I'm not gonna say every couple months. I feel like every more than a year goes by when I meet people that are like second generation California. It's like it's like a surprise, a treat. It's like, oh, interesting. That's cool.
Yeah,
California.
yeah.
You didn't really say how or why then that you got into wildlife biology later in the game.
That comes in the post back, right?
Well, it started.
What about like
It,
undergrad? Did you do biology or was it a music? Did you pursue
yeah, well, my
the
life took
music
a kind
major?
of a detour. So what happened was,
Air Force.
I had a child when I was 19, and I wasn't married, and at that point, I was at West Valley Junior College as a zoology major. So that was my track that I didn't really have a firm idea what I was going to do, but I knew zoology was, about animals. So I was going that route. And then I had a child, and that changed things because now I have to support us. And so I ended up going into this nursing program that was a year-long program so that I could get out, get to work, and support us. Put college on hold, put everything on hold. And then few years about, let's see, 1978, not long afterwards, I met my future husband. And we ultimately, he was actually a patient in the in the operating room. And we got married and we moved to Virginia. And so I was not in college at the time. And when we came back from Virginia, we were there for his job. He was an engineer for Lockheed. And we came back in the late 80s. And I had went back into the operating room and didn't really like it. And then I got stabbed on with a with an instrument on an AIDS case. And this was in the 80s when we didn't know a whole lot about AIDS at the time, didn't know how it was transmitted. And so I got stabbed, and it really scared me because I didn't know if I was going to get AIDS, or I didn't know if I was going to get sick, if I was going to take it home to my kids. And that night I made the decision, and I told my husband at the time when I got home, I can't keep doing this. I have to get out of here. And so I went back to college, and I started at night school, taking one class a night at Ohlone College, as a wildlife biology major. Um, and I did do a little stint in wildlife rehab. That's its own animal, literally. It's the yeah, the people that do that they're very different. And I did it for, I don't know, a year or so, and it kind of fit because I'd worked in the operating room, so I could stitch animals up and do all kinds of stuff. Um but then
You
I ended up, I was there for about 6 years. I finally started in my real undergrad at San Jose State in 1994, I think.
can I circle back to JC really quick? Is there like
Yeah.
can you vocalize the difference between like zoology versus wildlife biology? In Fresno specifically, I see a stream of biologists that spend some amount of time either volunteering or working for like Fresno Chaffee Zoo. And you know, Chaffee accepts like there's some sensitive species programs, so it's not just you know having one animal they take care of. But I'm kind of blurry on that difference. Can you speak to that? I mean, what it was in
Yeah,
the '80s, right, versus like if it's changed at
right.
all over the years.
Oh, things have definitely changed a lot. So wildlife biology is strictly looking at wildlife, strictly looking at, you know, what we would hope is our native species. And typically, as a wildlife biologist, you are looking to do science, uh, research on a variety of species and or questions or issues that you see that are of interest to you. So you really are taught um, a lot about the different taxonomic groups. At the time, you could take they they don't really do this so much anymore. In fact, wildlife biology is not even a thing at San Jose State anymore. It's some other name, and a lot of the core classes don't exist anymore. When I was at doing my undergrad, you could take herpetology, you could take ornithology and mammalogy and ichthyology, and you could really focus in one of those key areas. Zoology majors, it's a broader category. So zoology is basically the study of all animals, domestic as well as, you know, wildlife. Um, and there are a lot of different kinds of things you can do as a zoology major that you wouldn't necessarily be looking to do if your focus is wildlife biology. For example, the working in a zoo situation like you're talking about, that's not a typical thing that a wildlife biologist would do unless it was, let's say, a captive breeding program, maybe. You know, if you had a captive breeding program for um, like California red-legged frogs, there's a program down in Southern California, or foothill yellow-legged frogs or what have you. But you're not going to typically end up being a like a zookeeper or something like that when you're a wildlife biologist. That's not your intention anyway when you start. Your intention is to go into doing the hardcore science. Um, so that's how I see the difference. I'm sure other people may have other ideas on what really constitutes a difference, but zoology is just kind of a broader category, and then I don't believe the focus is on doing research and, you know, publishing your papers and your results and everything.
Did you say, if I'm understanding, and again, every university has a different name for the major and they're going to describe it differently, but just in general, you know, wildlife biology is focusing on either native or regional species and their relationship with the natural environment, whereas zoology is like general fauna and flora, or maybe not even flora, just general fauna knowledge and how do you say that, commercial, you know, commercial uses and lifestyles and applications.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
um okay, that was a little tangent. Let's go back to baccalaureate. You said San Jose State.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was fortunate because I was in
It's
the
sweet. Downtown. I mean, San Jose is
is it? See, it's funny because I grew up in San Jose, so San Jose State to me
it's
was
just
just like,
whatever.
yeah, you know.
Yeah.
And it was the closest university. I didn't want to go to Cal State. Hey, well, they didn't have a program. So when I went to San Jose State, I transferred in as a junior because I'd taken all the general ed courses at the junior college.
Okay.
And San Jose State had, it's called organismal biology and conservation science.
Cool.
That was my degree. And I had some of the best experiences and the best professors. Dr. Shannon Brose was my statistics professor. And she's retired now. She lives somewhere where it snows a lot now. And she was the one who really opened my eyes to a lot of things. So I had taken, I was so excited to be going to college. I had, and I feel sorry for everything being online now, because I would go it took me 6 years to get through junior college, because I was raising 3 daughters and I was also working full time. So it took me 6 years. And in those 6 years, I would get the San Jose State catalog, the paper catalog, and I would go through it and I would be looking at, oh my gosh, reading about these class. It was kind of like the equivalent of the
Such a
Sears
tease.
Robot catalog. You know, you're
Yeah.
super excited, like, oh my God, I'm going to take this class.
I'm going to go to college for 12 years. This is going to be great.
Yeah. Well, my entire academic career was 22 years, start to finish. So I was going to take mammalogy, and I was going to take ornithology, and so I did. I took a class called Techniques in Wildlife Biology, which taught you different types of techniques for basically for capturing animals or counting and recording data for animals you weren't going to capture, like birds, for example. You know, how to do a point count, and if you're doing any kind of a floristic survey, you know, how to do transects with quadrats. And then we had a project in the mammalogy class. No, actually, it was part of our techniques class. It was doing small mammal trapping out at New Chicago Marsh, which is part of the Don Edwards Wildlife Refuge. And we went out there. There was like 12 of us in the class, and we went out to do. Howard Shellhammer was the professor, and we went out and we were doing small mammal trapping to capture salt marsh harvest mice, which is a federally endangered species, fully protected state species, endangered as well. And from the first moment that we actually started catching those mice, I was caught myself. It was like, it was love at first sight. Oh my God. Yeah. They were just adorable. I call them the Rastafarian of rodents, because they are so chill. They're just like, yeah, whatever, you know. And
just kicking back in the palm of your hand.
Yeah. And we had to do, this was so for my undergrad. So you have to do a senior thesis. And so when we got done, I had an idea for my senior thesis. I wanted to do a salt marsh harvest mouse trapping project. And I ran to my professor's office because I was convinced everybody else had the same idea. I was positive everyone else had the same idea. So I ran to his office and, you know, Professor, would you be willing to, you know, sponsor me to do a salt marsh harvest mouse project for my senior thesis? And he said, well, you know, you can do a library paper. And I said, a library paper?
Let's go, library paper.
I did that in high school. I don't want to do a library. I didn't get into this to do library papers. I got into this to be out in the field and do research. So he agreed. And so first step, you have to write a proposal. So I wrote a proposal and I rewrote, and we went around and around and around and around. And pretty soon I ended up with just what I'd started with. And I was beginning to think, oh my God, this is ridiculous. Meanwhile, I was taking advanced statistics from Shannon Brose. And it opened up a whole new world. It was amazing. It was like, well, wait a minute. This is very cool. And I realized from that class, this is not I don't recommend this to anybody, but I finally got approval of my proposal after 6 months of going around and around on my proposal. Well, my proposal was to pretty much kind of do The same thing that
Trap
my
some mice.
professor had been doing for years. You put out a grid, you throw out a grid, and you put 100 traps out. But I realized from my advanced statistics class that that was not a statistically valid study, because that gives you a replicate of 1, a sample size of 1. Doesn't matter how many traps you put out. When you choose where you're going to put it, you walk out and you say, I'm going to put my grid here. You've already biased your study.
That's going to tell you about that spot.
Right,
your
and
report.
that one spot.
I learned
And,
a lot
and that
about
one
this
spot is
acre.
one replicate, and that isn't a valid
Nice.
study. That's not going to give you any conclusions that will hold up. So then I was in a quandary, because this is my professor, who is this very well-respected professor. He graduated from UC Berkeley, and he's considered to be the salt marsh harvest mouse guru. But I finally girded my loins and made my way to his office. And he said, well, you know, so we're good on the proposal. And I said, well, okay, about that.
Here's the thing. I'd like to make one last very slight adjustment.
Right. I said, I can't do it that way. It's just not statistically valid. I want to randomize my sampling. And he said, well, how are you going to do that? It's a marsh, you know, sloughs. And I said, well, how about a boat?
Darts.
I said, how about a boat? Well, he didn't believe I could do it, but he finally agreed only under the condition that I cut the marsh in half. I couldn't sample the entire marsh. I could sample half of it. So I said, okay. And this was before we had GPS units. And what we had was we had a range finder, and we had a compass, and that was it. And so what we did is took an aerial photograph of the marsh, because there's no GIS, gridded it off into, I can't remember how many blocks I ended up with. Then I took a bunch of poker chips, numbered them all according to the numbers on the grids, threw it in a bag, shook it up, and then reached my hand in and randomly pulled out 40 chips. Those became the blocks. Well, each block was 50 meters by 50 meters. So it took 3 of us to actually establish my study. We were out in the marsh. We had to have a boat. And then one person would hold the rangefinder. I would be walking. One person would hold the rangefinder. Another person would hold the compass. And they would be telling me, okay, go left, go right. And then they would say, if the rangefinder would tell them when I had made it 50 feet or 50 meters. And be, okay, stop, put in a flag, drop your traps. And we leapfrogged across the marsh that way. It's like, okay, now you've got to go 200 meters over here. And that's how we got it set up. And I was hooked. That was it. And I just kind of took off after that. That was a very long story.
Were there any? You got to tag along.
That's where my career started, in that marsh.
Harvest field mouse. I remember that. I remember that tangent.
Yeah. That would be a cue, then go to Jen's thing, and it'll all tie in together.
Yeah, we'll put that we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
Was there any?
Where it started.
Was there any kind of clubs at San Jose State that you joined, or was it still like not solo dolo, but you know you're just in your professor's network and tagging along to help, and you know you got the proposal approval?
Well, I wasn't tagging along to help anybody.
Well, you were leading that, but I mean, when you first got started.
You tell
when I first got started, no, because I was also working full time and raising 3 kids. So I did not have any time to do clubs or socialize.
Yeah, you were killing it. And man.
She was.
Well,
I mean, she was gone a lot, but she was killing it.
So you finished your, you made it through the research project. I got in my notes here, poker chip randomization study. Poker chip randomization technique. That's awesome. You
Well, now we have
survived
random number generators, but we didn't have any
Yeah.
of that then.
the chip bag.
Yeah.
So did you get a BS degree upon graduation?
Yeah, I had a bachelor of science degree. I was
Zoology?
also,
Zoology? Just kidding.
no, it was organismal. Oh God, now I can't remember. Organismal and conservation biology.
Cool.
I had a minor in botany. For all the good that did me, because seriously, if you use it or lose it, I lost it because I didn't use it. But yeah, it was I did my research, 6 months of salt marsh harvest mouse trapping, and I got my results, and um and that was interesting. I ultimately, that paper was well, not that paper. The master's followed after that. I went straight into a master's, and I continued my salt marsh harvest mouse research program or research project. However, I expanded it to include the entire marsh.
You got to do
And
the 100%.
yeah, well, so there was not such a good I guess you could say finish to the situation. So Howard sadly had to retire early, and Shannon Brose became my major advisor. And so when I finished the research, what I did for my bachelor's degree, and this is something that anyone who wants to be a scientist, you want to keep in mind. You want to be careful about how you design your study, and you want to be careful about what questions you're asking. Because if you ask too many questions and if you have too many variables, you're not going to be able to figure anything out.
That's a whole challenge, a whole exercise at the beginning is just getting to like a viable,
Right.
question to answer.
A viable
It's not something you
question.
can just pull out. It's like that actually takes a whole lot of work to like get to that question.
Yeah, and then
The
to
whole
design
thing.
a study that will
Uh-huh.
actually collect the
I
data
can
that
do
will let
that.
you answer that question.
Fascinating.
And so what I had done for my bachelor's degree is I essentially replicated Howard's previous research, and he investigated with his research. He always looked at height of pickleweed, salinity in the water, distance to nearest bare ground, distance to water, all of these different things. And I had one of those moments after the only thing I changed one thing only. I randomized the study. That was the only thing I changed. So I tested all the same variables that had been previously tested for 20 years. And I only changed the way that the sampling was done. So it was completely randomized. And after I ran my stats, I had this, oh, moment. Yeah, you're looking at this screen and you're just going, oh, no. What was really crazy is that when this study was randomized, none of the variables that had previously been believed to be significant in the distribution of the species were not significant. None of them had anything to do. So the question you're asking is, what variable in the environment is the presence of this mouse associated with?
So you're just trying to spot trends in like population density.
not trends.
Not trends, but correlations. I mean, causation specifically.
Associations.
Yeah, okay.
You can't
Got
even
it.
do causation.
Just correlation.
It's just association. And so where the mouse is present, this is also true. That's your association. So what was really fascinating is that none of the variables that had previously been associated as, oh, you'll have salt marsh harvest mice if you have X, Y, and Z. None of those were significant, which led me to go, oh, because basically what I had done without intending to do it
You
is
invalidate a decade of hard work there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Surprise.
Yeah, pretty much.
Good times.
Those are and that's why it's a no moment, because you're just a little student. You've just done this research project, and the last thing I was hoping to get a result, but that wasn't what I was expecting at all. So anyways, Howard retired, and Shannon Bros took over as my major advisor, and I expanded my study to include the entire marsh, and I went back to the drawing board because, well, if the presence of the mouse is not associated with, with these things, what is it associated with? What does the species associate with? And so I really kind of had to go back to the drawing board. And
so, like, for your masters, did you choose different variables on the second? I'm going to come back and I'm going to try these 10 other things.
Not 10. That's a good way to screw yourself in a study.
Yeah.
I measured, I think I did more than one thing, but the main thing that I landed on was, I think I measured about 4 or 5 different variables. But the one that what I landed on is, here was my thinking. So the dogma around salt marsh harvest mice previously was that salt marsh harvest mice occur only in pickleweed, and in pickleweed of a particular height. And then there was another part of the story that I'm not sure exactly how this came about, but there was this idea that salt marsh harvest mice are outcompeted in the salt marsh by Western harvest mice. Western harvest mouse is a common species. It's a common sort of grassland, field, meadow species. And so that was just the dogma without any actual scientific evidence that I could see. And then there was also thinking that it was outcompeted by voles, and I didn't find anything like that in my research, in my bachelor's degree. So I had taken a class in animal physiology, and one of the things that we had learned was about desert species and how they adapt to the desert, how they deal with that. Well, salt marsh harvest mice, they live in in a marine environment. They live among salt water. Pickleweed is a halophyte. It looks like a little succulent. They do look like little pickles, but it's a salt partitioner. And so what it does, there are salt excretors and salt partitioners. And what it does is it takes up salt and it pushes the salt to the very last little bit on the plant. And then when that part of the plant is completely full of salt, can't handle anymore, it turns red, drops off. And that's how the plant deals with the excess salt in the environment. Well, salt marsh harvest mice eat pickleweed. So my thinking was, well, wait a minute. If everything in their environment is super salty, maybe they adapted to have some sort of requirement around that. So I decided I was going to test the salinity in pickleweed. Howard had tested salinity in soil, salinity in the water. and did not test salinity in pickleweed. So I decided that's what I was going to test. And lo and behold,
Like which part of the plant though? Like were you taking
I just took a
sections
bunch
of
of
each
samples
leaf,
of the
or-
plant, the entire thing, top to bottom.
Oh, you mean you like hacked it and blended
Well, not
it?
the whole plant. You
or-
would take a sample,
Uh-huh.
right? Like a piece. And then
Okay.
I would take it back to the lab. As I took the pickleweed and I can't remember the whole process, but basically I spun it into a puree and then measured the
slurry.
salinity of the pickleweed.
Cool.
And at the end of the study, I did that for 2 years. And at the end of the study, it was really bizarre, but it turns out that there was an association. It was statistically significant. And the reason, and it also, when it showed that the dogma was incorrect, because Salmers harvest mice were not outcompeted and restricted to the ultra saline portions of the marsh. In fact, they weren't found in ultra saline portions of the marsh. And it
It's the
also
food.
showed,
It was the food.
it also showed that the reason that Howard had observed this height thing with pickleweed is because the mid-range salinity, which is where the mouse is associated, also happened to be a particular height, because recall that the salinity, the more saline it is, the shorter the plant gets, because it's dropping those parts off. So if you have a mid-range salinity, the plants are a certain height. So the height was an artifact of the salinity of the plant, but that's what the mice were associated with. And there was no interspecific competition going on at all. And I demonstrated that as well. So it was really interesting, but I was completely hooked on the science. I really felt I was in love with the science. I was in love with the fact that you didn't have to, you could take data, you can rely on data. These are facts. This is hard evidence. And if you randomize your study and you take appropriate data and you use the appropriate statistics, it will give you an answer. You don't have to make one up, and you don't have to have an opinion where you say, well, I feel like. No, there's no feelings. This is a fact. So I was hooked.
In some ways it's easier, in some ways it's harder to like just report on what's observed,
Yeah.
It's like not what we're taught in K-12, but
Yeah.
Science. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Master's program you said it was San Jose State as well?
Yeah. Same thing.
Was that like
Organismal and
was that like
conservation biology.
Got it. Organismal conservation bio. Was that back to back?
Yeah.
Finished your bachelor, started the master's that fall?
Actually, the next day, because the study was going on. It went through the summer. So it was just continuous.
Field day is like the day after cap and gown. Like, let's go.
Yeah, pretty much.
She goes hard.
And then after master's, did you go straight into doctoral, or did you spend some time working? Okay.
Yeah, I went into partnership with a herpetologist. I'd been assigned. I had started working while I was in my undergrad at a local consulting firm, and I was assigned to toddle after a PhD herpetologist. And so I ended up becoming a herpetologist. Basically, we went into partnership. I left the consulting firm and we went into a partnership, and I worked for 5 years and didn't go back to school for 5 years. 2004, I went off to Southern Illinois University to Carbondale for my doctorate.
5 years. Okay. That's a good run. Were you doing same pretty like consistently wildlife biology work, not South Peninsula, what do you call that? South Bay? Or East Bay,
all
right?
around the bay.
Okay.
all around the Bay, all the way out to Sacramento and Yolo, all the way up to Mendocino. Actually, as far as Kings Canyon, did a bunch of surveys in Kings Canyon through by helicopter. Would drop us down into the canyon so we could go survey for foothill yellow-legged frogs. And then all the way down to San Luis Obispo. Yeah, tons of field work.
That sounds like a fantastic run.